And of course, Steve's connection with kids was helped enormously by his partnership with the Wiggles. The Wiggly Safari DVD has broken sales records around the world, especially in America and Australia, where it's gone, I don't know, Anthony, Phil, triple platinum?
Something like that, right?
Something like that. It's gone on forever. And Magda Zabansky, who starred in Steve's movie, joins us now live from London. Magda, welcome. Good to talk to you. You called it love at first sight when you met Steve.
Totally. With him and Terry, we just sort of, the moment we met, you know, I was in my trailer and Terry opened the door and came in and said, "Hi, thanks so much for doing our film." And she was just so warm and lovely, and Steve as well, and so real, you know, really real. And I just adored them, really adored them, the whole family, and John and Judy and the whole kooky bunch.
So where were you? Were you in London when we found out of Steve's death?
Yeah, it was early in the morning, and I got a text message from a friend saying that she'd heard that Steve had died, and I thought that it must be a hoax, it can't be true. And then just all of these texts and phone calls and emails started arriving, and then I realised that, you know, it was true.
You call him the ochre bloke for the 21st century. What's your fondest memory? What makes you laugh?
Pretty much everything about him. Look, I remember just sitting around his kitchen table at their house, and, you know, and all this food would come in. Like, he was just the most generous person. There's not kind of a specifically hilarious incident. I think John Stainton pretty much has cornered the market on that, because John is the absolute king of practical jokes. But look, just all the time that I spent with Steve, it was the feeling of such a genuine connection, and he and Terry, you know, and she's a bit of her you know, light is a little bit hidden under a bushel. I don't think people realise what a wonderful woman she is. I mean, I would call her a great girl's great girl, you know. She's a really top chick, and my heart just absolutely goes out to her and the whole family. So, but, you know, he was... There has never been anyone like Steve, and there never will be again. You know, he completely reinvented the form, and
yes,
and has introduced a whole new bunch of people to wildlife.
Indeed. Anthony, you toured, the Wiggles toured once or twice. What a fantastic combination that is, the Wiggles and Steve. What more do you want?
Yeah, we did Wiggly Safari with him, and he's amazing. We get families writing to our websites constantly how much they enjoyed Steve with the Wiggles, and he was like the fifth Wiggle. He had more enthusiasm. He was more wiggly than we were, you know. He was the khaki Wiggle. He got us looking at animals that, you know, you wouldn't call them beautiful before, but he gets you to have another look at them, you know, from a child's perspective. First time looking at calling a snake beautiful. I'd never heard of that before, you know. Have another look at it, respect it, and see the beauty in animals. He's an amazing guy.
Spiders in the dressing room, or just snakes?
Actually, he played a few jokes on us, but that time we did Wiggly Safari was probably one of the greatest experiences for all the Wiggles, Captain Feathersword, Paul Paddock, all the dancers. We all look back on that time and just... Terry, John, Australia Zoo, they opened up for us, and it was just a beautiful time.
But you were telling me about the couple of times he'd actually wrapped the snape around...
He did it more than once, and I'm probably sure, John, he's probably done it to a lot of people, but at the Dally M Awards, he was there with this big snake, and he said, "Hey, Anthony, how you going, mate?" I said, "Good, Steve." You know, I started chatting. He said, "Look, I've just got to go somewhere. Just hang on to this." He put it around my neck. And he must have known the exact moment when I'd be turning blue, you know. He left me in the room, and I started panicking. And he came in, he said, "Mate, the more panicking, the hotter it gets, the more it likes you." And I was going, "Please, you know." It was one of those great moments. He had a good laugh.
For you too, I mean, the combination with the Wiggles was amazing, wasn't it?
It was terrific. Anthony, you'd have to admit one thing. He couldn't sing or dance, could he?
I tell you what, but he made up.
No,
he did. He talked his way through Old Man Emu, John Williamson, and... He had an interesting timing, but he got away with it. You know, that's it.
Did you ever see him switch off?
Never. In fact, one day he came to set late. He was there. What John was saying, he came in about 6 o'clock. We started early, and I said, "Where you been, Steve?" He went, "Mate, it was 3 o'clock. I got up. The sharks were out there. I was swimming out there with my mate. Had a great time." You know, that was Steve. On camera, off camera, same guy. A great man. Great man.
Yeah. Magda, can we just quickly ask you as well? Did he ever turn off on the film when you were doing the movie with him? Was there an off switch?
No, he had the most prodigious amount of energy I've ever seen, and look, he slightly was maybe like normally he would have been 11. Look, he was more than 11. He was 12 or 13, and you know, just when you're hanging out with him, normally it was maybe 11. You know, but it didn't go much below that.
Okay, Magda and London, we thank you for your time. Anthony, thanks so much. Good to talk to you again. When Steve Irwin went to the office each day, his suit was the khaki shirt and. Going one to the other, khaki shirt and shorts and the muddy work boots. But behind the basic bushman's outfit, there was a growing financial empire that covered everything from dolls to documentaries.
This bloke's going flat out like a lizard drinking. We're in for the ride of our life. Woo-hoo!
Behind all the extrovert larrikin charm was a very, very smart fellow who knew what people wanted.
Steve Irwin created his own multi-million-dollar brand while people around the world looked on, fascinated by the man who out-crocked the original Crocodile Dundee.
I mean, if you just look at his, TV show, if you think about, 500 million viewers around the world, 140 countries. His movie was worth, I think, 33 million US. His investment in his zoo was $40 million. I think it's incredible the dollar figures he generated for Australia.
Irwin understood better than most the reason tourists come to our shores.
I just remember him saying to me that people want to come to Australia to see our wildlife, to see crocodiles, to see wombats. They don't want, the latest cafe latte.
Look, Steve Irwin was the biggest thing for tourism for Australia since Paul Hogan, and the big difference between the two was that Steve is the real thing. Steve was everything that Australian tourism was about.
It's that real thing that saw him performing for 10,000 strong crowds and mixing with the Hollywood A-list at the G'day LA Expo in the United States. He quickly became Tourism Australia's unofficial ambassador and the darling of the live circuit, all at no charge.
Everything Steve did for us, Steve did completely voluntarily, never asked for a cent because he was passionate about what Australia could be.
And you've gone global when you've got your very own action figure doll and your own line of DVDs and even your own board game. Irwin Inc. was born and people couldn't get enough of our wildlife warrior. He even showed us what's in and what's out on another passion of his, border protection, educating tourists and Aussies alike.
And you will be. You could get whacked with a whopping great fine. Oh, crikey.
But Irwin Inc. isn't just about Steve. There's also daughter Bindi, sparkling, precocious. She's even signed a deal for her own series of spin-off shows with Discovery Channel's Animal Planet.
Crikey, mate, look at that little beauty. I'm terrible. Terrible!
Australia Zoo is now one of the country's best-known tourist attractions. Now, it will no doubt have to refocus without its most famous attraction.
When you talk to their staff and their team, they all share his passion. And that's why I'm sure that business will go on and continue to contribute to the causes that Steve was so passionate about.
Oh, I think he was the Australian export.
You never know what's out there.
John, that financial structure that's been set up, how's that been affected when he's not there?
Well, Ray, the fallacy that a lot of people think is that Steve made a lot of money, that the movie, there was a lot of press saying, he made hundreds of millions of dollars, which wasn't true. He didn't make that amount of money, and he made very small amounts. But he has a charity set up called Wildlife Warriors that relies very much on charity funds, and people, because they think Steve was very wealthy, think, why would we give to that charity? But he actually was funding that whole charity. It cost him over $1 million a year.
But why wasn't he wealthy? I mean, he was so big in America, he was so big here.
He put it all back into the zoo, he put it back into conservation properties. He was buying up tracts of land all over the place. He actually wanted to have, he had this vision that he'd have parks all over the world that he'd have natural habitat put aside for animals.
Or just buy bush and leave it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, all right. And Bindi can't take over at the moment, she's too young.
It won't be too long.
Won't be too long, says the producer. All right, when we return, we'll tell you how you can help carry on Steve's fantastic dream in a moment.
What a great male. See him posturing, mouth open, teeth, that display, that hissing. He's fair dinkum, he'll crunch me, but I'm not too scared of you, Barney, because I can move quicker than him.